Hey people, I figured I'd go ahead and clear up a couple things about haunted places, doing banishments, possessions, maybe not the exorcisms on this video, um, and also what I call programming inanimate objects with life force energies or animate life signatures. Don't know where to begin. Haunted places. So when people will call me up and say, "Hey, I think my place is haunted, my business is haunted, my new apartment, new house, whatever is haunted. Can you come over and do a banishment and, you know, peace, love, white light, and all that?" And I can usually tell if it's actually a haunted place or if it's like a programmed place by asking a few quick questions. One of them is, do you have small children, toddlers, and babies? And if they say yeah, are they affected? If they say no, there's a good chance that it's not a haunting or anything like that. Say, do you have any small animals, cats, dogs? And they say, especially if they have a cat. And the reason I say that, cats don't like any of the heebie-jeebie creepy stuff. If there's any kind of a spirit, a haunting or anything, like, the cats are gone. Dogs, you might see them look in a corner and like look and kind of like do this. And if they see a spirit, they're gonna pretty much ask, "Hey, you got any food? I want to play." If you see a dog looking at a place and is just kind of like really feeling scared, yeah, that's a problem. Be right over. The worst places I've done is, well, there was a place called Harvest House in the Redlands area near Miami. That was one of the worst places that I've dealt with because that was, well, that's another story. But as soon as I took the job or knew that I had to do that, I got the chills, and it was a long story, but that one was a test for me that ended up working out well once I got rid of that really malicious force. Um, so when people are talking about haunted and they say, well, dishes will fall off the shelf or things get knocked over and things like that, that's more of a sign of a haunting or another type of consciousness presence that can manipulate the physical plane. A lot of times, what I've seen in my experience, they had something to communicate. They had a favor to ask. You could make a deal with them, like, well, I'll notify these people about this issue that you're giving me, and and you help me do these other things. Actually, going back to that place, Harvest House, that was somewhat similar. When we got rid of the evil force, the female force that was left over was very sweet and wanted me to tell this one young teenage girl that used to come there that she was related to the household. And I didn't want to do this because this girl was like 14 years old, I think. If I was just say, "Hey, by the way, you're adopted, and you're actually related to the Anderson family from here," so many generations down the line, it would probably be a problem. But I got this splitting headache, and until I told her, the headache went away after I told her. But then she looked at me and just said, "Good day, sir." And I figured this would be a problem later. A couple days later, she just bounced up the stairs, gave me a hug, and goes, "Thank you." I asked my mom. She freaked out, but then finally she told me I was adopted, blah, blah. And the agreement was, it was a historic restoration. If I do this, you make sure that I pass all my inspections because this is going to be a really tricky political job kind of a thing, a lot of federal grant money, and it was just one thing after another. But after that, everything went real smooth until the owner of the property broke her end of the agreement, and then things went downhill. So you can make agreements because we had a lot of things falling over on the property. Sometimes it sounded like a massive pipe, were crashing through the roof. Every man on that job felt a hand be put on their shoulder and a woman's voice whisper their name. So there's a good example of like a real haunting kind of a thing. And it's at the same time, some guys felt, and even my brother was one of them, to do really horrible things to other men working on the job, like kill them, push them off the roof, smash their head with a hydraulic jack, things like that. Those are signs of hauntings. Now, I've been to places where the person moved in, a young couple moved in, they felt like something was really a problem, but they were able to answer the questions, like I'm saying, do you have small pets, do you have small children, and so on, but they weren't bothered. That pretty much turns around to be like a programming, meaning that a series of events can happen there that are high intensity emotions that can just explode out. And if we're looking at the example, like I said, if you have a metaphysical theory, if it's true, there's an example of it on the physical plane. And in this case, I want to use magnetism. Nickel, cadmium, and iron have these free electrons that can be influenced by a magnet or magnetic field and become magnetized, because those free electrons will just keep on spinning under the influence that the magnet gave them. It can wear off. Magnets can go weak after a while, a long while. And people say, well, how can that be with, humans? Well, I use the free electrons, kind of like free will of humans. Now, physicists may totally argue with this with me and be right, because this is the best explanation I can come up with on the layman's point. All that being said, let's say you have an apartment and just coincidentally, a series of abuse happens in there, like domestic abuse, per se. And couples move in there that are normally not into that kind of they have a wonderful, loving relationship, but then can fall prey or victim to the history of energy signatures that were at that property. And then they follow the same course. Places where people were murdered, battlefields. Okay, people can go there and go, God, I look like such a wonderful place to picnic, but I feel so horrible here. Oh yeah, it was a big battle here, hanging sites. I went to a place in Salem that, in Massachusetts, where they used to hang the witches, but now it's kind of like an athletic field. But when you get to this one corner, you can kind of feel it. And this is something that psychics, mediums, intuits, empaths can all experience and process that energy that they're experiencing into thought forms and relay, information and so on. So with the spirits, if it's a haunting, you can make an agreement, you can force it out, but you have to match that energy signature with a higher pulse to be able to push that out and unlock it, kind of release the grip, so to speak. And then you have to find out where the actual grip is, and then put that barrier between that. So it's like putting grease on a pole, I suppose, metaphorically. There's a longer, deeper explanation of that for another time. With the deals, it could be just they need to relay a message. Now, sometimes with something like that, they can come in, and because this other person moved to this property, this spirit could come in, and then the geomancy, geology, and alchemy can just work out right to where it enhances this person's inanimate/animate energy, interdimensional energy, and therefore be able to manifest or manipulate articles on the physical plane. And that's more of a common thing that happens instead of someplace just being haunted for a long time. The other thing that can happen is, because of the animate life force energy signature of human beings can buy into a story and basically create the deity, create the entities, the life force, feed it, make the story come true with their own manifestation abilities themselves. And that's what I've seen more often than anything. People will feed into the story, the fear factor, the scary haunted story, and then create the sensations that come from that. With the I've been to a lot of places where they had a bad history of things happening, and basically you just have to vacate that premises. People don't want to do that if they're paying rent, they have agreements or mortgages and so on. But you have to change the energy signature. And what I'll use as an example is, like, if you have a white wall in your home and you take a cup of coffee and you throw it on the wall, what makes this stain? Okay, you can go in there with your smudge sticks, your crystals, and bring down the white light. Okay, that stain's not going to go away. If it does, I will sign up to be your student. Okay, I haven't seen that happen. I haven't even heard of it happening on the physical plane yet. So how do you correct that? And again, metaphysics. All right, sometimes you have to use something similar in the metaphysical as you would the physical world. So you look at that, and the first thing you would try to do is clean that stain the best you could. And you'd wipe it down with a clean rag, clean water, and so on. Well, that's pretty much your intentions. You go in there and say, okay, I just need to make this better. I need to go in here with this more positive energy signature and positive attitude and say, I need to change this. So that can be done with your meditations. That can be done with your exercise and visualization meditations for clearing and so on. But the stain, energetically and otherwise, is still there. And then what would you do next to that coffee stain once you cleaned it? You let it dry, so you have some downtime. And then you would take an aggressive primer and paint over that, at least 2 coats with that primer, and then paint the wall with the same primer. So now you have this uniform condition on this one plane. And the same thing, you can go in there, you could smudge. Again, all these things are tools to guide intentions. So if you're good with your intentions and focused energy, you don't need all the tools, right? But for the client's sake, sometimes we have to bring in our props and, act the part. You do that, and then just like you would let the primer sit, you let that energy sit for a while. And then you're going to put in your main coat of paint afterwards. And your main coat of paint would be something that you would just have to completely change the energy signatures of that room, of the inanimate objects. And for things, usually have a party. Have your friends come over, you put on some funny movies, some stand-up comedy or whatever, dancing, whatever. And when the energy starts to change, you can just feel people just kind of like starting to catch a little bit of that influence, time for everybody to leave. Have them outside for a while, talk about what you did, and send them home in a more positive frame. Come back the next night, do it again. 3 consecutive nights in a row is a really good application. And then what you're also going to do is let it sit for a little while. You can do most of this in a month. And especially if it's a business that just opened up and they're trying to do something, they may want to sacrifice a month because their business plan is usually 3 months to 6 months of loans taken out to float cost. And this would be a good idea for that. Okay, going to programming real quick. This necklace behind me, I used to make these when I had this swim group in Miami. I'd swim in them for a while, meditate, and then often enough I'd meet people that kind of matched the meditations that I had, and I knew that necklace was for them, even though I didn't meet it yet. I've swam a little over 500 miles in this one, okay? And so in that, sometimes it was stormy conditions. Sorry if that sounds loud. Sometimes it was stormy conditions. Sometimes it was lots of jellyfish, man of wars, and sometimes we get pulled out by riptides. But no matter what it was, you had to keep that calm movement. Even if you're stung, if you see the sharks are getting too close or curious, or the riptides or whatever, you still had to maintain steady stroke, steady kick, steady breath, calm state of mind. And that's what goes into this necklace. So one time in Dusseldorf, Germany, I had one woman at our healing circle was just kind of like freaking out and just going all over the place emotionally, and I just kind of walked up behind her and put this on, and everybody got to watch her just start to steadily calm down until she's like, oh yeah, I feel so much better. What is this? I said, oh, I put that on. Yeah, just curious what it would look like. How you feel? Oh, much better now, and so on. So that's how you, again, it's metaphysics. If you have a theory that's true about something, it'll already exist on the physical plane. And if you want to test something, if you want to really say, is my theory true, you test it. And so this was an example of that kind of a test. And then you have to have people, so in one of these properties, let's say that was suffered this abuse kind of a thing, have these parties regularly, upbeat music, upbeat movies in the background, happy foods kind of a thing. And that just kind of like recoats. And then finally, it has more dominance over the energy of the past and the other experiences. There was one house I lived at in between project. It was an apartment really. And this everybody within this metaphysical community, they knew this one guy named Dave. And they said, yeah, he could use the company hall. He's got extra rooms. Ask him if you can stay there until you get your next project and so on. I'm like, okay. So I got in contact with him. He said, yeah, I moved over there. And I slept in what used to be his mom's room. She had died a little while ago. And he goes, if you could, I'm still kind of dealing with the loss of my mom. Just don't move anything around. I'm like, no, that's cool. All I have is a backpack. No big deal. Got a real good night's rest. Woke up a little tired. Like, well, yeah, I did a lot on my last project. I was like, take the day easy. Finally, through the weekend, And then by Monday, I was just like, I don't know, get it. I sleep so long and I just can't figure out why I don't have any energy. I mean, I was in top athletic condition then, you know, and I had a feeling to ask him, like, where did your mom die? In the hospital? No, she spent the last couple of years of her life on that bed until finally she was getting weaker and weaker and just died. On the bed I'm sleeping on? He goes, yeah. Yeah, okay. Mind if I sleep on the couch? He goes, no, why? Well, I just figured I'd try it. You know, couches are comfortable, you know. The next morning I felt a lot better. Okay. I didn't sleep in the bedroom anymore. Okay. The next interesting thing was I was thinking about my 30-30 rifle. You know, the Winchester lever action. Look it up, people, if you don't know what it is. 30-30 rifle. I was thinking about that when I'd be on the toilet in the morning and smelling blood. And I couldn't figure this out. It's just like the weirdest thing. And it kept coming back every morning. You know, finally I wanted to go to the bathroom someplace else, but, you know, where, right? And then one day I woke up and going to the bathroom, I felt like my feet were wet. And I'm looking at my feet. I'm like, what's going on with me, man? This is just weird. And so when we're sitting at breakfast, and I asked, and Dave's like, are you all right? I said, dude, the weirdest thing's been happening, man. I go sit on the toilet, and I think of my 30-30 rifle. I can smell blood, and the other morning I came out, my feet it felt like they were wet. And he started to get this tear in his eye. I'm like, Dave, you got something to tell me, buddy? Yeah. One day my brother went in and sat on the toilet, put the rifle in his mouth, pulled the trigger. 30-30 Winchester lever action rifle. He bled out everywhere. We came in and the carpet was soaked with blood. I'm like, damn, dude. Anything else you want to tell me? He goes, no, that's pretty much it. He goes, what do you think? I said, I got one word for you. Move. Now. How long you been here? He said, 22 years. Like, shit, dude. You see, so that place had 22 years of he, his brother, and his mother going through these hard times, his brother dying, and him just sitting there just kind of wasting away in this energy. I'm like, Dave, you have to move. Break your lease, whatever, deal with it. You got the money from settlements and stuff. Go start a new life. And so he did. You know, a couple weeks later, he got out of there. I was on my other project, and his life totally changed. He went to work at an animal refuge center and so on. He escaped that energy. Honestly, I feel sorry for the people who moved into that apartment afterwards. I hope they were fine. But so I wanted to give you guys a quick example. Already 18 minutes right here, right? There's a huge difference between hauntings, banishments and possessions. That's another video. And programming inanimate objects with animate life force signatures and how to deal with them. So, like a lot of places I've gone to, people say, well, yeah, all these shamans, all these medicine people, witches came in there and they couldn't get rid of the spirit because it wasn't a spirit to get rid of. It wasn't a consciousness to get rid of. It was a programming. It was a splash, an energetic splash on the wall, so to speak. And they didn't know the difference of what they were dealing with. And that's a huge difference when it comes into why in shamanism, you should have an apprenticeship to learn about it. You just think, poof, I'm a shaman. No matter who channeled it, what spirit told you, it just doesn't work like that. You need proper training to do this stuff. And then you need lifetime experiences to verify, rectify, and clarify your methodology. Catch you guys later.